So I'm Natacha Gougeon. I work for FCIS, Foothills Community Immigrant Services, out of the High River office, but I also cover the Okotoks office. So I'm the Community Engagement Volunteer Coordinator, and I have two of my colleagues here with me today that are going to help me present. I have Marie Schooten. She works out of the Nanton and Claresholm office. There's actually no office in Nanton, just in Claresholm, but she covers those areas. And she's also the Canada Connects coordinator there. And we have Gabby, who's brand new to us at FCIS, and she's our new community, she has a huge title. It's Youth Coordinator, Connections Coordinator, and she works out of the Okotoks office, but also covers both High River and Okotoks as communities. And we will take turns talking. I'm just going to start quickly with an overview of what FCIS is, what we do, and how you might know us, and talk specifically about our Canada Connects program. And then Gabby and Marie will lead you in a discussion, and we can talk about, specifically what we're doing, the work that we're doing, and how and if that looks like work that's happening in Calgary, how you can take some of the things we do and use them in your own work. So we'll just get going right away. So introductions, no, oddly enough, I just did that. But the point of this slide is that I think it's really important that anytime you do work that's about connections and connecting people, that we have to get vulnerable and get uncomfortable and allow ourselves to show ourselves and to see the people that we're working with. So when I work with our clients, actually, when I first started doing this job 4 years ago, I had a small project that I was working on, and I was connected with our most vulnerable clients, and I had to get to know them and take them out into the community. And one of the things that I did was create this questionnaire, and I would sit with the clients for an hour and a half and ask them all kinds of silly questions like what they love to do and what they love to collect and what's their favorite season and what's something they used to do as kids. And it was fascinating. It was fascinating because just having that conversation, getting really deep and getting to know somebody that you've never met before, where there's most likely a language barrier, I got to know things about myself. I got to reveal things about myself, and the clients really felt seen, and they felt it was life-changing. And it allowed us really to get to know what our clients needed and what they were capable of doing, what their capacity was, and how we could help them. So I want you to keep that in mind as we're going through our presentation, that anytime you're doing work that involves connections, you can't get around not getting to know the people you're working with, whether that's your clients or whether it's your partners, whether it's what your community has to offer. It's all about getting to know each other and making that kind of deep connection. So really, you need to get past your discomfort and allow yourself to get vulnerable. So briefly, we'll get into who we are. So FCIS is a project of Calgary Catholic Immigration Society. CCIS is in Calgary. I call it the mothership. They have several projects throughout the area. So we have offices in Airdrie, Cochrane, Chestermere, office in Okotoks and High River, Claresholm. Brooks also is another big part of the organization, and we're all ISs, so CISs, so BCIS, WCIS, RVIS, and so if you see those things, then it's all related to CCIS in Calgary. CCIS has over 250 employees. Collectively, we speak over 72 different languages, and specifically the offices that are south of Calgary is the Southern Alberta Rural Initiatives, also known as SARI, and those are all the different offices I just mentioned. We also do outreach in various other communities like Black Diamond and Turner Valley, Vulcan. We get around quite a bit. Now our Canada Connects program that we're going to talk about today is one of the programs that we have where we match volunteers with a client to help them connect with their community. So what we do specifically is we have settlement workers that work with newcomers, immigrants and refugees, and we help them settle into the community. We help them specifically with things like their paperwork, so if they're permanent residents or temporary foreign workers. But there's also that social element, and that's where the Canada Connects program comes in. So some of our clients have very specific needs. It can be language support, so they need help learning English. It could be translating documents or interpreting for them during certain things like doctor's appointments or that sort of thing. It could also be specific things like helping them with filling out some paperwork, or their Canadian citizenship applications, or studying for the Canadian citizenship exam. And we have volunteers that will help them just get to know the community. So let's go visit the library, let's go to the movies. It can be knowing where to do your grocery shopping, and if they have specific questions about life in Canada, then that's where the volunteer comes in and they can help them with that. The other aspect that's new, and that's where Gabriela comes in, is we now have a Youth Canada Connects program where we're matching youth with youth, or sometimes adults with youth, to help them in that same respect, but with their specific needs. So it can be with tutoring, mental health supports is huge right now. It's a huge concern for our youth. So we're trying to match youths with other youth to help them navigate some of that teenage angst, and really get to know the community better, maybe help them with their English. Really, the volunteer becomes a safe person for them that they can connect with, and try to, as they navigate their new life in Canada. If I didn't say this at the beginning, but if you have any questions, feel free to chime in. I can't see people right now because I'm sharing my screen, but somebody will let me know, hopefully, if you have any questions. And then, like I said, in a couple minutes, we'll really get into the discussion part of this presentation. So you can also share your thoughts at that time. So best practices, I think what's really important to know is that we really, and it goes back to what I was saying at the beginning, we really, it's client centered. So we need to get to know our clients, find out what their exact needs are, and adapt our services to what they need. So right now we have a lot of youth that need help with college applications. Sometimes we went through a phase where it was Canadian citizenship studying, so they needed help to study. So when things come up, then we'll find volunteers, we'll train the volunteers so that they can help the clients fulfill the needs that they have. Also really super important to know your community. So in our communities, and each of our communities are different: Okotoks, High River, Nanton, Claresholm. And it's really important to know what your community has to offer, and how, because we don't have public transportation. There's some in Okotoks, but in the other communities we don't have the same services that you would have necessarily in a big city like Calgary. So it's really helping our clients adapt to that and letting them know what there is for them, and seeing how they can get the services they need and do the fun things that they can do without some of these things that they've been relying on and maybe in their home country. So really, I think the key is that we're very adaptable and flexible, and we're patient, because this doesn't happen overnight. It takes time to get to know the clients. It takes time to train the volunteers, and sometimes to make these matches happen, it takes time. The matching usually takes about, so we usually match our client and our volunteer in 3-month increments, and we hopefully they last up to a year. Sometimes that's not necessary. If you're matching a volunteer with a client to help them study for Canadian citizenship, it can be a matter of weeks or maybe a couple of months. When we're doing those matches, those community mentorship matches, then that's when we're extending them to a year. Or if there's a mental health or mental wellness component, those matches will last longer. But it's really a question of being patient, of being flexible, and not being afraid to change mid-course. So sometimes you'll match a client and you get them started and you think their issue is language support and they need help learning English. But then you realize that no, there's a mental health component that we need to address first. So then we go back to our settlement workers and see how we can help them in that respect. In terms of community-based as well, it's really important to look at your partners around and see what they're doing. Here in High River, we have Wild Rose Connections. They have their own matching program called Caring Connections. So they are looking for volunteers to connect with clients. It can be seniors, let's say, who need help with their gardening or who need help shoveling their driveway in the wintertime. So, you know, there's a potential there for us to offer up our clients, match them with their clients, and then it's a win-win. You're getting some social, emotional support and community engagement happening for our clients, and their clients are getting their needs met as well. So it's really being open to looking at what's happening around you and how we can adapt our program accordingly. So that's it for my part. I'm going to transfer things to Gabby. And if you have any questions, just feel free, or you can wait, like I said, while we start the discussion. Thank you. Gabby, I don't know if you're muted.
Yeah, Gabby, we can't seem to hear you, but it does say you are unmuted though. So it might be your audio.
Gabby, maybe check on your, so this happened to me, make sure that on your keyboard, you're not muted there. We still can't hear you. Have you tried it like on your volume control anywhere? Sometimes it's at mute, but it's not at mute. Okay, so sorry, well, that was Gabby. I don't know if you can see her lovely face.
So Gabby, sorry, Gabrielle, try and signing yourself out and coming back in. Maybe that might be the best. Thanks.
And then I guess what we could do is get the conversation started while we wait for Gabby to come back, maybe. Marie, do you want to get going?
Run through a little bit of mine, and then we can just switch around a little bit if we'd like.
Sure, I can move forward to your slides. I can do that for sure. Okay, just
Natacha has talked. Thank you, Natacha, for that great information. And she talked a lot about how we work with clients, community, and volunteers. Most of you who are doing community work do work with volunteers. One of the things we try to utilize is our client base. We feel that if you can build on the strengths of people you're working with, you're going to be able to create much more successful integration into the community. So we want to really know our clients and what they feel their needs are, so we can make appropriate connections or mentors from our volunteer base. Another important part is knowing who your volunteers are, whether they are coming from the larger community, whether they're coming from within your organization, whether they're peers or other mentors. Our volunteers may come from within the workplace, where they have very common ground, or they may be seniors from within the community who want to give back. Because volunteering is a very North American Canadian concept, we often have to really illustrate what a volunteer does. And we do training programs that will provide all our volunteers with what our expectations are, what the about confidentiality and ethical work with clients. We also emphasize that more than anything, many of our clients just need a friendly face and a smile. And that is where the volunteer can come in and really help to build that community, sense of community and belonging within there. So those are some of the really important pieces at our end. Once we start to get into how connections are working, the mentoring mentee roles, we want to really look at the cross-cultural interaction. So for us, because we are working with newcomers, immigrants, culture is central to where we are starting. We may be looking for connections within common cultures, or we may be crossing cultures. It's very important for everyone involved in our program, our volunteers especially, to be aware of their own culture, where they are coming from, and what they are bringing to this new relationship. For most of us, I speak for myself and other Canadians I know, we take culture for granted. We just go through each day and have patterns of behavior and attitudes and traditions that we use without thinking about it. It is the same for everyone. Your culture is part of becomes part of you as you mature. So once you get to become an adult, that is a part of you that you most times don't even realize. It is influencing how you interact with others and the way you approach situations. So we really ask that people start to examine that. And within that, look for ways that they, assumptions they have about other cultures, what you think might be, and I'll say stereotypical of others. And we all have some of these. We just don't really consciously think about them. But we are trying to bring out the understanding that all culture is equal, that we all are culturally based, and that we just need to recognize that. Above that, when you work one-on-one with somebody or in a small group, you're working with personalities, not cultures, but individual people. And we want to really focus on the strengths of each individual and how they can work together. So we want to be really flexible. We want to really identify some of those things that we might be doing without even thinking about it. I'm sure everyone can remember a situation where they may have been with someone who spoke a different language, who was new to the community, and you didn't know who they were. And often the tendency is to speak louder rather than speaking slower, trying to be clear about what you're saying, and really involving them in the conversation. That is something that we really want to focus on. I'd also like to encourage people to not make assumptions, that no question is a wrong question to ask. If somebody does not want to answer a question, they can always say that. but at least you have it out there and you're not assuming something on their behalf that may create more problems moving forward. So always ask those questions. I found myself in working with people and especially working with technology, no question is the wrong question. And you often don't know what you don't know until you ask that question. So now, if there's comments or people have things they'd like to add, or if we want to wait until after Gabby, when she does her, lets us look more in depth at community, we could have a discussion at the end. And I know I've missed a slide, Natasha, but we'll maybe save it till the end.
Yeah, no, it's all good. Okay, so maybe if we can get Gabby back on and see if she can talk. And I'll go back to her little section and then we can, I know Gabby wants to get you all talking, so.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Woohoo! Welcome back, Gabby.
So sorry about that. Amanda, help me. So sorry about it.
Okay,
I'm not so much into IT stuff, so.
Okay, I'm just having a hard time going back to my slides. I might have to come out of the sharing and come back in. Oh, maybe not. There we go. Oh, look at me. Okay, wait. I think it's like
the one before.
Yeah, I'm trying.
Okay.
The one after,
Sorry
maybe.
about that.
Okay, wait. Oh my goodness.
Meanwhile, I'm going to introduce myself. I think Natasha did before, but some of you are not here. So my name is Gabriela, and I just started with FCIS a month ago, and I work with the youth as a youth volunteer coordinator, also community engagement, and with Welcome Okotoks project. So about our work here and like all the challenges we see with a newcomer immigrant into the rural communities, like we sometimes don't realize some little details that some of those newcomer immigrants face when they arrive into the rural communities. So it's like uncountable, like how many barriers they face, especially because sometimes you come from a different culture, a different city or town, and you end up into a rural community where sometimes you don't have what you used to have before, like transportation and like the language barriers. You have other complex needs that you're facing, and you were far from your family. It's sometimes it's difficult for you to express your feelings in a different language. How do you deal with your new life? Sometimes by yourself, sometimes you need to adapt with your whole family. If you're by yourself, you have the struggle of your family is far away, you need to support your family. And then after a while, you working here, you bring your family to live here with you, this family reunification, how that looks like for you as an immigrant. Like sometimes you left your home country with like you left your baby or like a child that now is a teenager, for example, how that connection will rebuild in this new community. So you have these barriers of adapt yourself into this community with your family, different aspects you need to adapt to yourself, plus the language barriers. So it's like lots of little things and big things that the sense of belonging in this new community can be more challenging. Also, like with what our clients in the rural communities they experience, like for example, they connect with each other in the same like ethnocultural like organization or community, but sometimes they don't feel the sense of belonging to connect with the community. So they stay together, and you have a different type of barriers that you face. Like, for example, you still bring your values, your culture, and you stay together, and you don't feel that sense of belonging to participate, to engage. And so in that scenario, is really important for us as like the FCIS to have the extra hand, to have the extra help, to help newcomers, immigrants to feel welcome, feel like part of the community, build that sense of belonging. Even though with the struggles of everything, it's important for us to show them that they have the resource, the support, and it's important for us to understand, and for all the other nonprofit organizations and other organizations that support newcomers, immigrant, to understand that every rural community, they are different. They have a different needs. So it's important for us to understand, to study what the needs in that scenario, what the needs of that community, so we can better assess them and understand and provide the resource they need. Next. Thank you, Natasha. So the sense of belonging, like to build that sense of community, our FCIS work together with a partnership with the towns and the rural communities. So we have, for example, those the community advisory committees in High River and Okotoks, where they meet, they just talk about with the partnership with resources that the town can provide to make them, the newcomers, a little bit easy on the process of adapting themselves. We have this partnership with like food banks, United Way, the library, to provide as much resources as we can to newcomer immigrants, so they can feel welcome, and they also feel the sense of staying in the community, because sometimes they feel like staying here for a while, but they don't feel like they want to be here. They want to be in the big cities, and they don't feel welcome. They feel like more of their groups are in other parts of the province, like big cities, because of transportation. Sometimes they don't have the possibility of connecting, like internet, for example, in those remote areas. They need somebody to drive them, to go take them place to place. Sometimes the mental health can be a process in that, and they don't have the right support, so they don't feel like they don't have enough resource to support that. So that's what another part of FCIS is with the town of Okotoks, for example. That's my other job description in here, is like we are into partnership with the town to build this Welcome Okotoks project, where we plan to look into the whole scenario of welcoming immigrants, what they need, what the resources we can provide to them to make they feel welcome, make that sense of belonging and understanding the values, the culture, and everything. And at the same time with the volunteers, for example, that's a big part of my job and Natasha's job. Some of the cultures don't understand the aspect of volunteers. So how can we help them to understand the importance of volunteer? How can we help them to be part of our group and feel part of the community and have that sense of helping? On the youth focus, that's like my part. We have the so I work with the volunteers. So during summer, we're planning to bring like people who can talk to them about like safety, work environment, how it is to start and workplace, the work ethics, and also talk about healthy relationships, just like life skills, so they can have a little sense how it is to live in that community, how it is to be an adult, for example. So we're trying to engage the youth into the community, see if they can have that sense of belonging and just be part of it. And the Swiss work have an important part of that as well. They go into the schools, they talk to the youth, during the school year, and we engage them into the events. We engage them to know what the community can provide to you, what the community can help you. And with COVID, that was not like, it was kind of a difficult time for us and probably for other communities as well, because we couldn't have that work in person. So Natacha did a really good job. She planned, and she's still doing the newsletter. How can we still communicate with newcomer immigrants? So the newsletter through the internet was really helpful. So that was really important for us during pandemic. Also, we have some like newspaper that goes around Foothills that during those pandemic, it was really important for the newcomer immigrants to have that type of information. Yes, we have the struggle of like language barriers sometimes, and newcomers being like a remote areas, they don't have the understanding or like of the resources that are available for you. So internet is really important in those times of pandemic, but sometimes we need to understand that that some people in those rural communities, they don't have the access. So how can we build that that sense of information? How can we help them to see the resources available? So here we figure, not that we figure out, but like we know that word, like people talking about like spread the word is really important for them to know about the resources and everything. So I like, as a discussion that I would like to bring, what kind of like support system, because I know every organization can be different, but what kind of support system like you guys are building in your community that can be helpful and was helpful during pandemic and post-pandemic? What do you take from it? What you don't take from it? And that's my presentation.
I'm going to, I don't know if there are any questions at this point. Like Gabby was wondering if, what kind of strategies we can use for building support. I'm just going to skip ahead to our last slide so that maybe Marie can start the discussion and we can broach the topic of JEDI as we talk about building support in the context of justice, equity, diversity, and inclusion, which it's a struggle in some rural communities. We have challenges that are different in the city. Our populations are on the surface maybe less diverse, but they're getting there, and I think it's a challenge for certain community members. So it's a challenge we face as we're working with our clients, as I'm struggling to move my slide forward. So maybe Marie, you want to get the conversation going, and I'm going to try to find that.
Thank you, Natacha. Couple of things I will mention. I know there was a session on JEDI. One of the things that Natacha did through the pandemic, in her newsletter, she would always include a section on JEDI, whether it would be a short video, whether it was an article, something that would bring that to the forefront. She talked about how the makeup of our smaller communities, we have High River and Okotoks are medium-sized communities now, over 5,000 people. the communities I work in are all under 3,500 people. Within a community that size, someone of color stands out quite clearly against the makeup of the community. So we unintentionally, people will notice them and look, and we're working very hard to try to eliminate that being targeted or noticed because you are different. And that is the heart of JEDI, to be able to start to build inclusion for everyone, have everything, have our communities become much more equitable. And that is where I think a discussion could start, that how do we create a community that will allow for a sense of belonging for everyone within its boundaries. One other thing I will just mention quickly, Natasha. I just got a little notice saying that yesterday, CBC did a spotlight on the Canada Connects program. So I will send those links to Amanda, and maybe she can post them on the CDLI website for everyone to see. I didn't see it myself, but apparently it was done in Calgary and on the news yesterday. So for anybody who looks at CBC, they may have already caught it, and that would also give more information about our programs. Thank you, everyone, for attending. I'm not sure how much time we have still, Tyson, but you can kind of lead us in that. And
well, we have a few more minutes, but if anyone did have any thoughts or comments, I'd love to. Yeah, how do you build that support?
I haven't looked at the chat, so I'm not sure if there's anything in there. And I know it is a large group to try and participate, but.
Well, I guess I have a question. So in some of these rural communities that, because oftentimes, that settlement process isn't necessarily anyone's choice necessarily in that matter. I'm wondering, like, how do you help those who have been, residents who've been in that community for a very long time, who might be really hesitant or apprehensive, or even, or have, a racial discrimination against certain folks? How do you sort of combat that, or how do you help to sort of help with their learnings?
I could maybe speak to that a little bit, Tyson, because I think the programs that I'm in the communities, Claresholm, Nanton, Vulcan, have newcomers and many who have been there for a long time, but have never had services up until very, very recently. One of the things that I have done, and I do, is to try and reach out to people who've been in the community longer to get them involved in our program, to find some places where they would benefit from that involvement and would be able to share their experiences with more recent newcomers. We also, in Claresholm, we have created a welcoming Claresholm committee that is a mixture of newcomers and longtime community members. And we're hoping that that is going to also influence the community and encourage the community to be more inclusive, to recognize the diversity building within our community and see that as a good thing. I'm not sure if that answers everything, Tyson, but that's where we're starting.
Yeah, no, sounds like a great starting place. And Cindy has a question here. Is I'm curious if the challenges of living in urban areas is resulting in more immigrants wanting to live in rural areas, And so I guess, do you see that happening? And do you anticipate that this is going to be a growing phenomenon?
So maybe I can answer that. What we've seen in the past and what we're still seeing is that you might have immigrants or refugees coming to initially settle in our area, in the rural area, but eventually they go back to the big city. I think it depends where they're coming from. If they come from a large city, a densely populated city, and then they all of a sudden they find themselves in rural Alberta with no public transportation, I live in High River. I feel like I have a full life and I have everything I need. But if you have to imagine that you don't necessarily speak the language, there's a lot of barriers you have to overcome, and it's a lot easier, it seems, to overcome those barriers when you're in a large city, where you might also be able to find a community of people from your home country that you can relate to, or that can relate to you, and that can help and guide you as you're navigating your first months or years in Canada. So I mean, that's why we have projects like the Welcoming Clara's Home Project and the Welcoming Okotoks Project, where we're trying to really get our towns on board and our townspeople and our leaders to say, like, look, we live in a fantastic place. We have all these events. We have great community spirit. It's cool to be here. But it's a process. You have to be patient and you have to get everybody on board. And that's one of the challenges we have, because we still have communities that are not quite on board with the whole, with opening their doors fully to everybody, unfortunately. So until we get to that point, some people are going to go back to the city because it feels more comfortable. But hopefully maybe we can get more people here. We have the Cargill, which is in between Okotoks and High River, which is, has a huge, I don't know what the numbers are in terms of the workers, but, it's immigrants are working there, mostly temporary foreign workers. Again, I don't know all the numbers, but I know what usually happens is they come here as temporary foreign workers and their families eventually join them. Some of them are settling in High River and Okotoks just because of proximity. And that's where we have a huge Filipino population, Mexican population in High River. But they've formed like a mini community within the community, which is attractive to them and a good reason to stay. Does it help them with engaging with the rest of the community in terms of all the events and festivals we have? Not necessarily, and that's where we come in and we're trying to show them and give them a sense that their community, our community, it's all the same. We all live together and we work together and we want to play and have fun together as well.
Thanks, Natasha.
I can add a little bit as well, Tyson, or is our time up?
Well, I did just want to mention to folks that the next session does start in 7 minutes, and the expectation, or at least what we were hoping for, is that there would be kind of a 10-minute break for you to kind of stand, stretch, and then go into the next session. But Marie, if you feel free, but I just wanted to give people that permission that if they do need to do those things, that they can.
One of the things I was going to say, Tyson, and you touched on it briefly, many of the newcomers in our smaller communities have come by their own choice. They're here for work, they're improving their economic situation for their families. However, we do have a few who have come as refugees. And with both the Afghani resettlement and the Ukrainian programs going on now, CCIS is taking a huge lead in both of those. And just yesterday, I spoke to our CEO, who has a vision of people, some of them being able to settle in smaller communities, because many came from very small communities. So that is something moving forward that is very much in all our minds, and how we can work with our communities to be welcoming for anybody who is here not by choice, but because this was their best option at this time. And that's a bigger discussion, Tyson, and maybe that's something that can be done at one of our meetings. So thank you very much for this opportunity. And I hope all the participants feel they got some very worthwhile information from it.